Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode right here on EV Myths Busted. And joining me in this episode is a very special guest of mine, motoring journalist, a good friend of mine, and a guy who really knows his stuff. We have Feng Yang, also known as the Big Soup.
What's up?
Okay bro, so what have you been doing of late?
Busy, life, work, cars, the usual,
Okay.
What we all do,
I'm really happy to have you here on EV Myths Busted.
Yeah, great to be here as well.
Bunch of myths to, kind of kill. So could you maybe kick off with our very first myth that we have?
Okay, so the first myth we have is that only luxury EVs qualify for the full $40,000 rebate.
That's right.
What
Good
do you say?
Good one. Okay, so what's your take on it?
Okay, I that's actually bunk because most, if not all, not all, but most EVs on the market actually do qualify for the full $40,000 rebate. Yes, there are a couple that are not A1 band, but most of them, they do qualify for the full $5,000 rebate. And if you're looking in the market, if you're in the market for a brand new EV, man, that's a pretty sweet deal, in case you ask me.
That's right, and I think with the government also planning to do a bit of downsizing on the rebate next year.
Yes.
So which I guess is one of the reasons why
the consolidation.
Everybody's been rushing to kind of get their cars before the end of the year. All right, so that guy would, as my friend here says, is busted. So what's the next myth that you have for me?
Okay, like you just said, since that they are gonna revise the rebates for next year, is that you need. So the myth is that you need to rush to buy an EV for 2025, and that again is bunk.
Okay, and so with that myth, yes, I think this basically it's like a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, it is.
So when people hear, hey, CEO is gonna go out rebates, gonna cut down, everybody's gonna start rushing for cars and everything else.
Yeah.
Even if they do cut down on the rebates, right? But with the fact that the COEs keep on rising, in the end it kind of like
it negates.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't even negate. It just takes everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So which is I really don't understand why people are doing this, because you see that the CEOs are coming down, but and everybody has the same mentality where hey, let's quickly rush and get a car.
Yeah.
And when that happens, automatically COE prices go up.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So in the end, with this whole thing going on, it's just going to push prices of everything to go up. But what I feel that after a while, people will realize that hey, it's probably gonna be not that bad, and the prices might drop again. Like I said, might drop. Don't take my word for it. So if you ask me,
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So if you ask me, should you rush to go and buy an EV? I really honestly think you should just lay back and see how comfortable you are with price levels, especially with the COE or even the car prices that are being offered up there. So that we could say that's kind of busted as well. And for those of you correct, and those of you who are watching overseas and you're wondering, what's a COE? Basically, it's a certificate of entitlement, which allows you to only have that piece of paper, not even buy the car, right?
So essentially, with that COE, also known as Certificate of Entitlement, you are basically renting your own car from the government for 10 years.
That's right.
And if you want to renew it for another 5 or 10 years, you got to pay another amount of money.
Right. So that's kind of busted. So what's the next myth that we have?
Okay, so the next myth is that you can only get a rebate on the ARF if the car is assembled in a particular country.
Yes. So that's a good one actually. So what's the take on that one?
Okay, it's busted, so man. It's all just depending on the EV incentives and everything else, the emissions and the power output, all that jazz. Doesn't matter where the car is made. It can be made in Malaysia, Korea. I mean, we can be made in Singapore, for all you know. But no, it's not going to affect where the ARF and everything else.
Right, and I think this ARF thing is really as this being a Singapore edition, right? If you're watching overseas, whatever we're talking about today kind of relates to the Singapore market. Yeah. So if you're wondering what an ARF is, what a COE is all this are basically a kind of tax thing, brackets or whatever you can call it.
Value added services.
Right, value that happens only in Singapore. All right, so that's kind of I guess kind of busted as well. So what's the next myth do you have for me?
Okay, so EV charging will overload the national power grid in the evening or like during peak hours when people
I honestly okay, that one is one of my favorite topics because I love talking about EV charging and the whole charging structure as well. What happened is in Singapore itself, before they even planned to put chargers out there, the government has already dedicated on the power grid a certain amount of power which they allocate to all these EV chargers and everything.
The allowances.
Yeah, the allowances. So I mean, any government who plans such an infrastructure will already have plans that will not overload the power grid. You know, unless you're talking about some third world country, which Singapore is not being a first world country, of course, we always plan ahead. So I almost certainly say in the Singapore context, basically, that is not going to happen because of the kind of planning that, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to suck up the government, but the kind of planning that the government has put into the infrastructure. And I believe that whenever they set up an EV charging station or EV charging infrastructure, they always look at the whole power grid around the whole area and see whether it actually suits, you know, to say put an AC or DC power charging system into that area. So, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's be clear, it's Singapore. When is the government ever going to half-ass?
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
I mean, like, okay, if you're thinking like, yes, you know, why certain places can have a faster charger, a slower charger, or like your home,
right,
because of like, you know, like safety requirements and whatever else. Not. Yeah, you can only in a home charger, you can only install a charger that is, well, charges that much, which is not much.
Slow charger, basically.
Yeah, slow charger. If you want, like, you know, a faster one, you have to go to like a public car park or a shopping center or any of like a more dedicated kind of facility.
So let's go to the next myth, brother.
Okay, so range anxiety is a problem in Singapore.
Okay, that's for you, man. So,
if you're talking about maybe the earlier days of electric cars, perhaps.
Right.
But now with, you know, even like the electric car in Singapore with like the smallest battery, which is, I can't remember off the top of my head, but one of the ones I tested in recent times was the now defunct Neta Aya.
Oh, okay.
That one had, it's gone from Singapore now, Neta as a brand. That car, I think, had a range of like just a bit over 350 km.
Right.
And I didn't feel any range anxiety in that thing, even though the battery was like this big and the range was even smaller.
Long time ago, the early days of EVs, you know, I remember trying out one of EV. I'm not going to mention the brand. The range was like 200 plus. That, of course, then you would probably say,
that is range anxiety.
I will have range anxiety because 200 plus can only get you so far, you know. And even in Singapore, which is basically a tiny dot with the amount of driving that most of us do, you know, we kind of clock more than 200 easily.
Yeah.
But with you know, as Daniel mentioned, nowadays with all the, I think talking about the most basic model of EVs is out there, they have a range about at least 400.
Yeah, high 300.
Yeah, 300, 400.
400,
and for a little red dot like Singapore, which, you know, we have with the government's plan to have more than 20,000 chargers by the year 2030. I think now we got like 13,000 maybe.
Yeah, a fair amount already.
Yeah, it's fair amount. I think it's more than enough. And range anxiety, I think, is really the least of your problems right now. So what is that? Okay, so let's jump to the next myth. Anyway,
EVs are impractical for road trips to Malaysia.
Okay, so I'm taking this or you taking this?
This is we can do
both together. So what's your take first? Let me give me.
I think honestly, in a couple years ago, it would be a bit iffy, but now no. Personally, tried and tested previous generation Kia Niro one charge from Singapore to KL.
Right.
Me and two friends, so three of us, a car full of camera equipment and our bags.
Right.
We left Tuas, Bell charger at 98%. Crossed the border and drove all the way to KL. I mean, we stuck to speed limit, 100-ish.
Yeah, and even in general, I mean, I did kind of 2 road trips most recently, and the videos out there as well, so you can actually check it out. And actually did this whole, you know, Singapore to KL route and showing you all the different charges along the way. And honestly, as what Tan said, the infrastructure is really, really good. A lot of people used to be worried about, hey, how if I drive along the highway and then my car dies or something? So that's really not going to happen, because I think based on what I did, they have like 3 stopping points along the way on the highway itself. And I'm talking about this about the expressway, you know, along the way. There's like petrol stations where you can actually charge.
Yeah.
If you get off the expressway, if you go into the towns, there are also charges as well. So really, I love driving to KL, you know, and I keep telling people, you know, be a bit adventurous. There is really no problems with having driving